Welcome back to The Exchange. Change Research's latest poll is showing a shift in the race for the White House. The survey conducted after President Biden dropped out of the race has Vice President Harris taking a slight lead over former President Trump, and she's gaining traction with donors from coast to coast. CNBC.com's Brian Schwartz reporting she's on track to raise over $100 million from the tech community alone, and also had a private campaign strategy call with Wall Street heavyweights, including Robert Rubin, Mark Lasry, and Robert Wolf. Brian is here with me now. He's our political finance reporter. So is James Pethokoukis, economic policy analyst at the American Enterprise Institute and a CNBC contributor. Great to have you both here. Brian, just jump in and add some extra color or detail here. What else are we learning?
Well, Kelly, we've been saying it, and I'll say it again. The donors are coming home to the vice president. The reality is that this is a look back and look forward story. Weeks ago, I couldn't take a call with any of these people who were not upset with Joe Biden's debate performance. Now that he has stepped off the ticket and he has endorsed her, the money has just been flowing in. As of today, Act Blue, which is the Democratic online fundraising platform, has processed over $200 million since Sunday.
Wow.
Since the day.
And in context for that, the Biden administration was raising like $100 million a month.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, thereabouts. But this is unprecedented. I don't even have a number to contrast it with because
how does
in
it
a matter
stack
of
up
days,
against
it's crazy.
Trump?
Well, I don't think Donald Trump or any other campaign, to my knowledge, has raised that amount of money in a matter of days. I mean, that is incredible. And by the way, that side of money that's going to the campaign is saying they've raised over $120 million.
Wow.
The $200 million is spread across different campaigns, political groups, nonprofits leaning to the Democratic Party. So this is what I'm trying to get at. The money has been pouring in not just for the Harris
Democratic
campaign.
Party in general.
Correct.
For any number. It could be local races, it could be causes. I see.
That's right. And so that's just with the Act Blue side. The Harris campaign, they're saying they raised over $120 million. And the meetings that we're hearing about that you alluded to in your introduction really speaks to that, right? These are some major financiers on Wall Street who met with a member of her campaign, Rufus Gifford, over a Zoom call yesterday. And really what the talk of the town was how they could raise money for her. And the same thing's been going on since then and before that call. It's been this steady drumbeat of people slowly getting organized and being invigorated because Joe Biden's off the ticket and Harris is now leading the ticket.
And Jimmy, just a tactical question, because I'd love to know more broadly what you think about this, but there's been a lot made of her, of the excitement about her on TikTok. And I wonder if that's the same kind of phenomenon as the Trump campaign using Facebook very much to its advantage back in 2016.
Yeah, well, I think that's a great comparison. I think there's no doubt that already the Harris campaign has been more effective on that very important social platform, especially that age group of voters, than the Biden campaign has been. So I think that that's a big plus. She's still going to have to raise plenty of money for a more old-fashioned kind of campaign, and even more so, I think, than Donald Trump. She is going to need that money to define herself. I think, listen, people have very firm opinions at this point on Donald Trump. Kamala Harris, less so. I mean, who is she? Is she going to be sort of another version of Joe Biden? Is she going to be more sort of the Senator Harris, who is to the left of Joe Biden? She needs to define herself, and she's going to need that money to do so.
That's why I thought her statement about Israel yesterday was actually quite interesting. It was pretty vehement, and who she meets with in terms of the vice presidential race will also be telling. Jimmy, do you think Chuck Todd? I was listening to his podcast. He said that Trump could replace Vance on the ticket if he so chose. It's not necessarily a done deal. Do you think? He made that pick before she was who he'd be running against, and I wonder if he'd change it now.
Well, he might have picked someone different. But what's the rap on Donald Trump and what the Democrats that he is the chaos candidate? That if you don't want more chaos, then don't vote for Donald Trump. Replacing his vice president after the convention in reaction to what the Democrats have done. One, I think it would kind of make him look weak or silly. But again, it looks like chaos. It looks like the gang that can't shoot straight. Saying this, he'll probably get rid of Vance in the next 36 hours. Yeah, but no, I would expect him to keep J.D. Vance as his vice president.
What then are your thoughts for investors about kind of the way this race is shaping up thus far?
Yeah, listen, it wasn't so long ago. I think a lot of investors thought that not only were they going to get a President Trump second term, but they were going to get a Republican Senate, Republican House, extension of tax cuts, lots of deregulation. As far as some Silicon Valley folks, you mentioned them giving money to Harris. Certainly some of them are giving money to Donald Trump because they like the deregulation. They don't want a lot of heavy AI regulation, or certainly a lot lighter than they're likely to get from Biden or now from Harris. So that was the situation then. Now I think, the situation is like you might get a President Harris with likely a split Congress if she should win. What does that mean? Are we going to get bipartisanship? Are we going to get gridlock? Are we going to get an extension of maybe the Inflation Reduction Act in exchange for some tax cuts? I think it's a far more uncertain sort of environment than what it seemed like 2 weeks ago when it looked like Republicans across the board.
And normally, Brian, people say markets don't like uncertainty, but Jimmy and I and we all know that markets do like gridlock. And if it's shaping up, if Jimmy's right about the way this could shape up, then it's the kind of status quo that usually goes over pretty well with markets, broadly speaking.
That's right. But I think what Jimmy touched on also was this question of policy, of what the vice president's policy is going to be looking forward.
You mean Harris or
the vice president? Yeah, the Harris.
Yeah,
and because there are questions about that privately among donors. That came up in the call on Wednesday with the Harris campaign official who was there. So these questions of exactly where does she stand on tech regulation? Where does she stand on the economy? Because anybody can look back and say, look, Harris did talk about raising the corporate tax rate to 35%. She has said that. So now the Harris campaign is going to have to really think about, okay, how are we going to formulate the new policy proposals moving forward as if the idea of she could become president down the road? And why does that matter? Because these funders have to go to their networks and say, look, these are the policies where she stands today and try to raise money that way. If they don't have that, those talking points or those points that they can make, they could struggle to raise some money for her in the coming weeks.
Absolutely. It's a great point. And we'll see who she does pick, vice presidentially speaking, to kind of give those hints and those indications one way or the other.